Welcome to the fourth episode of our Action Research Webinar Series 2020. Lights, Camera, Action, Research. This episode shall cover discussions on the how of action research. After you have formulated your research question, you now have clear focus as to what changes you want to do concerning your problem. The next question is, how will you do it? Improving your learner's performance is the main reason why you want to improve your own practice. With your developed research question, what will you do to answer it? This part will help you decide on the methodologies that you will employ in order to find an answer to your research question. You must outline your approach in finding answers to your developed question. Who or what will be the source of your data, the research methodology you will use, and how you will analyze your data to generate meaning of results. Your participants and/or other source of data and information. Action research as defined usually takes place in the classroom. Your informants or participants are part of your daily tasks. But the question is, who among them are involved in your action research? Who will be the main source of your data? And who will participate in the research? Specifically, identify the individuals who are the focus of your action research and most directly affected by any action to be undertaken. Identify who could help and who could be involved. Will it be a single learner, students from your own class or other classes? Ideally, action research means active involvement of those who are affected in the process of action and reflection. Include also a description of your chosen participants as well as the reason why they are considered a source of data. Specify also what participants will do or experience as part of your study. Sampling of respondents, especially in qualitative research, is usually purposive based on the criteria set. However, there are times when you get a representative sample, especially when your target population is big, that conducting individual interview on daily or weekly basis is not possible. In this case, you only get a sample out of your identified target respondents. In the case of quantitative research, specifically experimental research, you will either get all the target respondents or just a sample through random sampling, the result of which is a representation of the total population or respondents. The sequence of action as well as a timeline should be clearly planned. Specify further where the study will take place. Is it in your classroom, in a reading lab, in a special reading room in your school, or in the district? And now another part of your action research methodology is the data gathering methods. A focused research question with appropriate data gathering tools will lead to useful and reliable analysis. The kind of data and your method in gathering data will influence the result of your study. If your desired outcome, for example, is to let those learners under frustration reading level move to instructional or independent reading level at the end of your study, how will you know that you are doing the right thing? How will you know that they have improved their reading abilities and to what extent? What specific indicator of performance would tell you that you succeed? In finding answers, you have many options to choose from. Choosing the most appropriate methodology will eventually result in accurate, valid, reliable, and meaningful data. Keeping various sources of data in classroom helps provide a greater understanding of what is actually occurring in the classroom. Students' journals or diaries are good sources of data. These contain information on experiences, feelings, aspirations, insights, and personal lessons learned by them, which are possible sources of qualitative data. As a teacher-researcher, you can collect meaningful information from your daily record of students' performance, attendance, or test scores. A student's portfolio is also a reliable source of data on their performance for you to evaluate and see if your goal is attained. It is also helpful if student respondents are collecting data on their own performance. Through this, students are becoming directly involved in monitoring their own progress, which would eventually result in positive change. Documenting your data collection and even the entire research process will give you a record of implementation, which can be a very good source of data for reflection. Taking videos, audio recordings, and photographs are only some of the ways you can document your process. This table shows the possible sources of data, and this was adapted from Bruzzo 2011. Generally, there are two approaches in research methodology. First, qualitative, and second, quantitative. The approach that you will choose will depend on the research question that you seek to answer. Action research may use qualitative or quantitative only, but the use of the combination of qualitative and quantitative will lead to better results as it looks into the action research process in two or more perspectives. Okay, so let us discuss qualitative data collection method. Qualitative data collection method provide verbal information rather than numerical description. This is used with phenomena that are difficult or impossible to quantify mathematically, such as beliefs, meanings, attributes, and symbols. This is used by the researcher to capture the student's experiences and the entire duration of the intervention. Qualitative methods give you deeper understanding of the feelings, views, opinions, thoughts of your respondents that may not be obtained quantitatively. The following are some action research qualitative methods. First, interview. An interview in qualitative research is a conversation where questions are asked to elicit information. Interviews help in gaining a clear understanding of people's thoughts, actions, and views. According to Glesny in 1992, an interview gives one opportunity to learn about those things that cannot be seen. There are several variations on interviews: structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. Each variation can be utilized in different situations. If time is limited and you wish to increase the comparability of answers among respondents, then it would be best to use the structured interview. If you wish to have some flexibility but still cover key topics, then utilize semi-structured interview. If little is known about the topic and how to approach it, then an unstructured interview may allow you to explore the topic best. It is a must that you prepare your interview protocol or interview guide prior to the actual interview session. Most of the time, the interview is conducted among learners themselves. Always remember that your interviewee has something to contribute to your understanding of the research topic, and having this mindset will allow you to establish rapport with your research participant and will keep you interested in what he or she will say. As the researcher who is the primary user of the information, you collect data directly from them on a one-on-one basis while keeping a friendly mode. You need to assure your learners that their responses will be kept confidential and not affect their grades and academic performance. Participants may provide data in their own words and in their own ways. They must also be assured that their ideas will count in your undertaking. Although an individual interview is time-consuming It is a practical way to elicit a response from the learners because they are given privacy with you to express their true feelings. If you want to record the interview, you must inform your participants. They must also be assured on the anonymity and confidentiality of their responses. If you opt to use an interview as your method, be specific. Are you going to interview them individually or as a group? In the entire duration of your research, how many times will you conduct an interview? How will you choose your interviewee from among the identified participants? Will you just get a sample or the whole population? In your proposal, the answers to these basic questions must be clear to you when you decide to use interview as your data collection method. Now let me give you the following tips in conducting interviews as stated by Torneo and Torneo in 2018. First, inform the participants on the purpose of the interview. Explain how the session takes place. Second, assure research participants' anonymity and information confidentiality. Third, ask good questions. Fourth, let your participants lead. Basically, you need to create an atmosphere where your research participants will be interested about the topic, so much that they will willingly share their insight about it. Once you have made your informant interested in sharing and opening up about himself or herself, try to keep it at this level of exchange. Second, focus group interviews. This is an alternative to individual interviews, most especially if the number of research participants is big that conducting one-on-one interview may not be practical given limited time. A focus group explores a topic through group discussion. The group is comprised of 6 to 10 participants selected as a representative of a class. The facilitator promotes discussion that will bring out information not tapped through a questionnaire or individual interviews. Third, observation. Observation, as the name implies, is a way of collecting data through observing. As a researcher, you immerse yourself in the natural setting of your respondents while observing, taking notes, or even audio or video recording. Observation gives the researcher direct access to the main source of the information. The procedure and the instrument to be used in observation greatly depend on the research question to be answered. The quality of data can only be gathered using appropriate instruments. You may ask a co-teacher to observe your interaction with your respondents. However, she must be given an instrument that she knows how to use. In the case also that you want to back up your observation tool to capture every detail, you may audio tape or video record your class. Let's adopt the 2-column notes by Hollingsworth in 2001 to 2005, as cited by Nogent et al. 2012. This 2-column notes observation tool will capture what you observe in your identified respondents and what does those behavior mean to you as the researcher. You may also prepare a checklist containing your expected behavior to which you will just check if the desired behavior is manifested or not. This will ensure that you will gather meaningful information based on the presence or absence of the behavior as indicators of the effect of the action you employed in your research. The data as to the frequency of manifestation of behavior can be taken quantitatively to deepen the analysis of the result of the study. On the other hand, it is important to note that the observation data collection method may be associated with certain ethical issues. Fully informed consent of research participants is one of the basic ethical considerations to be adhered to by researchers. Fourth is document analysis. Numerous written documents of learners' performance are at easy reach of you as a teacher researcher. These are rich sources of data that would help you understand how your respondents perceive and react to the intervention you are implementing. This may include journals, diaries, artworks, letters, written stories, and the like. Information from these documents can be used to clarify learners' performance through observation, interview, and written objective assessments. Let's discuss quantitative methods. This refers to measurable data sets that you may get from the respondents. Test scores, written responses, and graded performance using a set of criteria will tell you the extent of the changes your action impacted your respondents. Establishing a baseline data of performance before the start of the research, in between assessment, and conducting post-test or evaluation of performance will provide you clear basis in looking into the evidence of success. Increment in grades, improvement in reading ability level, and higher performance are just some of the actual data that would help you further understand the flow of your research. There are some quantitative research designs that are used by researchers in different fields. These objective research methods deal with numbers to describe the results of study. Among these research designs, experimental research is the most applicable in action research, where an intervention or action is implemented in order to address a specific classroom issue or problem. Experimental research design uses instruments that yield numerical data. This employs the use of independent variable to see its effect on the dependent variable. Depending on the research question to be answered and the target respondents, the researcher may choose from among the three types of experimental research design, such as pre-experimental, quasi-experimental, and true experimental. Now let us discuss pre-experimental. In an action research, the independent variable or the intervention is initiated to see its effect to the behavior of the learners. However, in this type of experimental setup, randomization of sample is not applied. It has no control group also. For example, you will initiate a reading intervention in your class. All of the learners in that class are respondents and receive the same intervention. Or if you want to create a special class for your identified respondents, struggling readers for instance, the whole members of the special reading class will be part of the study. All of them will receive the same intervention and their performance shall be measured quantitatively. Quasi-experimental. This involves the basic characteristics of experimental research design where the independent variable is manipulated to see its effect on the dependent variable. There is no random selection of participants, but there is a designated control group. While in true experimental, there is a control group, but participants are randomly selected. In a collaborative research involving two classes, this can be used where one class will be introduced with intervention, which becomes your experimental group, while the other class will be taught the usual way, and that is your control group. Among the three types of experimental design, pre-experimental and quasi-experimental are commonly used. This is because action research usually takes place in the classroom where grouping and randomization requires ethical considerations involving both the participant and non-participant members of the class. Data triangulation. Action research problem is most of the time unique in every class. It is unique because each class is composed of learners with unique combination of traits and characteristics. That uniqueness of the phenomenon in your class would also entail a unique solution. It is in this premise that there is no single perfect data collection process that can be prescribed for you in order to end with reliable and valid data. However, the triangulation of data would aid you in looking into the consistency and accuracy of your analysis. Triangulation is a process of gathering multiple data through valid ways in order to ensure reliable results. Triangulation is further defined by Nugent et al. In 2012 as using at least 3 independent windows to observe any phenomenon, which helps to ensure quality. Triangulation provides the following benefits. First, it compensates for the imperfection of data gathering tools. Second, when multiple techniques give the same results, it can increase confidence in the results. Third, when multiple resources fail to give the same results, it can raise follow-up questions. Another view of triangulation is presented by William Brusso in 2011. As illustrated in the diagram, there are 3 methods used in data collection. First, observation. These answer the questions, what do I see as a researcher? The second method is interviewing or journaling. What do my students tell me? And of course, the quantitative data process or method, assessments and tests. This will answer the question, what does student work tell me? This is an example of triangulating data for action research in reading. Observation notes on reading performance of identified struggling readers in a class. Second is review of reading journals and interview with the respondents. And another method to triangulate data is reading level of respondents as a result of reading assessment using tools. The third part of action research method is data analysis plan. Data analysis is oftentimes associated with complex statistical tools. But in action research, this is done in a very personal way as it helps the researcher understand how his action translates to the desired outcome. After gathering data from the sources, the next step is to analyze them and formulate a conclusion. Unlike other types of researches, action research data analysis happens along with data collection. In the process of collecting data through an interview, focus group discussions, reading of students' journals, computing test scores of the respondents, initial analysis takes place. Analyzing the data helps you as a researcher to reflect on what actually happened. This is an initial gauge if in the course of your research data gathering, you are getting the desired evidence of success. If not, you have the chance to revise your data gathering plan. Action research is an iterative process. The data you collect and your analysis of it will affect how you approach the problem and implement your action plan during the next cycle. Formulate a tentative conclusion out of the data you have collected. Though the aim of action research is to affect positively, it might happen that you are misled in the process with the enormous data you collected from different sources. As you continue to gather data, you tend to refine your analysis and draw a new conclusion. As you are analyzing your data collected and generating a conclusion, it is helpful to share your initial findings with your colleagues. This usually aids you in clarifying your process. You may also share your initial findings with your learners who could possibly agree with your conclusion and would give you a feeling of certainty and confidence in the result of your study. On the other hand, if they disagree, that would lead you to reassess and refine your conclusions. You have set in your plan the target date to start and end the research. The question is, how will you know it is time to stop collecting data and generating conclusions? Your indicator is when you reach saturation of responses, most especially in qualitative way of gathering data, and that is when you see the redundancy in the data that you have gathered. A consistent trend of your data analysis is an indication also that you are done, and it is the right time to formulate your final conclusion. You may have formulated your final conclusion and share the result of your study to your colleagues and other stakeholders, but the cycle does not end there. With your findings, you may begin redefining your problem and ask a question again, modify your plan, and start collecting data. This is the action research cycle. The continuous improvement goal moves you to continually looking for areas in your current practice to improve. In the case of teachers who are submitting the research paper for funding or for whatever purposes to the Department of Education, one research problem answered through the cyclical process of action research is enough. If you wish to further improve along that aspect of professional practice, you begin creating another plan. Part 5 of your action research proposal. Your action research work plan and timelines. You are done with the details of your action research plan. All you need to do now is to prepare a simplified guide for you to follow. Remember that action research aims to address an urgent classroom problem. It is therefore imperative that you conduct the study as scheduled. This will make your study responsive to your emerging problem. In this part, you will list down all activities relative to your research with the corresponding timeline. Specify the start and end target dates. This will help you keep track of the progress of your research undertaking. Should you wish to present the timeline through Gantt chart, you may do so. Individuals who will be involved in your study should also be pre-identified. This will give you an idea as to who could possibly assist you in every step of your research. This is an example of an action research work plan and timelines. It has 3 columns for your activities, target date, and persons involved. Your activities can be categorized into 3. First is pre-implementation phase. Second, implementation phase. And the third category is post-implementation phase. You may outline all your activities in those 3 categories with the corresponding timeline and persons involved. This will serve as your guide as you conduct your own research study. And now, the part 6 of your action research proposal, cost estimates. As a classroom teacher who desires to improve performance, to conduct an action research is a milestone. However, an action research, just like any project, entails resources. For you to have an estimate of the possible expenses you would need in the entire research process, you may use this template. Include all activities with corresponding monetary requirements relative to your research. As stated in Depth Order No. 16, Series 2017, or the Research Management Guidelines, school-based action research may be granted Basic Education Research Fund or BERF of not more than 30,000 pesos. You may also opt to look for benefactors who could help you financially with your research undertaking. Now, what you see is an example of a cost estimate template. Of course, you may again classify your activities into pre-implementation, implementation, and post-implementation. But the next column is your resources needed. You are going to state all the things that you will be needing in each corresponding activity and of course the amount. Only those activities with monetary or which you need resources shall be included in the template. Part 7 of your action research proposal, plans for dissemination and utilization. While the ultimate goal of your research is to promote effective change in your classroom or schools, do not underestimate the value of sharing your findings with others. Sharing your results helps you further reflect on the process and problem, and it allows others to use your results to help them in their own endeavors to improve the education of their students. You can report your findings in many different ways. You most certainly will want to share the experience with your students, parents, teachers, and principal. Provide them with an overview of the process and share highlights from your research journal. Because each of these audiences is different, you will need to adjust the content and delivery of the information each time you share. You may also want to present your process at a conference so that educators from other districts can benefit from your work. As your skill with the action research cycle gets stronger, you may want to develop an abstract and submit an article to an educational journal. To write an abstract, state the problem you are trying to solve, describe your context, detail your action plan and methods, summarize your findings, state your conclusions, and explain your revised action plan. The reporting of action research most often occurs in informal settings that are far less intimidating than the venues where scholarly research has traditionally been shared. Faculty meetings, seminars, and teacher conferences are among the most common venues for sharing action research with peers. However, each year, more and more teacher researchers are writing up their work for publication or to help fulfill requirements in graduate programs. Regardless of which venue or technique you select for reporting on research, the simple knowledge that you are making a contribution to a collective knowledge regarding teaching and learning proves to be among the most rewarding aspects of this work. Part 8 of your action research proposal, References. Use the American Psychological Association or the APA style for in-text citation. For single author, write author's last name, followed by a comma, and the year of publication. Example: action research emphasizes the involvement of teachers in problems in their own classrooms. So you're going to write in a parenthesis, last name of the author, followed by a comma, and the year of the publication. Two authors. Use an ampersand before the second author's last name, followed by a comma, and the year of publication. Example: action research allows educators to learn about their own instructional practices as they monitor improved student learning. That is according to Rawlinson and Liddell, in 2004. 3 to 5 authors. Write all the author's last name the first time the citation appears in the paper. For succeeding citations, write only the last name of the first author followed by et al. And the year of publication. So we have an example. In an ongoing process, action researchers continue to observe, reflect, and plan. And that is according to Nugent G., Malik S., and Hollingsworth in 2012. In this case, this is the first time that the authors appeared on your paper. That's why you are going to mention all the authors of that text. But in the second citation, what you're going to write only is the lead author followed by et al. And the year of publication, just as shown in this example. The sources that you have cited in your paper will be listed in the references part of your action research proposal using the APA style. Arrange the entries alphabetically by the last name of the lead or first author. Be guided by the following samples of reference entries for various kinds of sources. For book, this is our sequence: author, date, title of the book, location of publication, and publisher. So we have here our example. For journal, the author, date, article title, journal title, volume number, page number. And this is our example. Using the results of previous studies, facts, works, and the like is not prohibited, but those should be properly cited to give recognition to the authors. Plagiarism is an issue nowadays when some are using or claiming the works of others to their advantage. Though in action research, the approach is too personal as it dwells on classroom scenario, there is still a need to be careful in giving credits to the original authors of the documents cited in the research paper. As a review, let us check the parts of your action research proposal. First, context and rationale. Second, action research question. Third, proposed innovation, intervention, and strategy. Fourth, action research methods, which include participants and or other source of data and information, data gathering methods, data analysis. Fifth, action research plan and timelines. Sixth, cost estimates. Seventh, plans for dissemination and utilization. And the last part is references. That ends the fourth episode of our Action Research Webinar Series 2020. It is hoped that you have acquired the necessary knowledge and skills in designing plan in order to improve your professional practice that would consequently lead to addressing the practical problem you encounter in your classroom or school.